What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Primetime Sports Podcast, hosted by Joey Malari. So, just recorded a quick episode on tonight's Beanpot matchup and the semifinals between BC and Harvard, and also Northeastern versus BU. I gave a preview of both of those games, and now I'm going to talk about some news in the sports world over the past week or so that I just missed out on and didn't get to talk about. And I'm going to start off with the biggest news in sports over the last week or so, and that's Tom Brady officially retiring and calling it a career. Obviously, with this being the second time he's retired in the last year, this one seems a little bit more official, though, with Tom Brady being 45 years old and obviously not having the best season. He had a pretty good season, but considering the Bucs really weren't going anywhere, and he was still, putting up decent numbers, but probably didn't think he had a chance to win with the Bucs anymore and didn't really want to go into free agency and test that. Ends up calling it a career at 45 years old. But one thing about Brady is that I was never the biggest Brady fan, especially when he was on the Patriots. I had heard about his dominance for years, and obviously the Giants had some tough seasons. They had a very tough stretch from 2012 when they won the Super Bowl to 2022, only making the playoffs just once. They had a very tough stretch, and it was obviously a tough time being a Giants fan. But one thing about Brady is that I've grown to respect him. I've grown to respect Tom Brady. One thing that I never really liked about Brady was that he was always getting overhyped, I thought, by Patriots fans. But at the end of the day, I've come to respect him. When he went to the Bucs, I started liking him a little more, and obviously the NFL will not be the same without Tom Brady no longer being there. So, as a Brady, I'll break down his career really quick, talk about some accomplishments he's had, obviously being probably the most accomplished player in NFL history, seven-time Super Bowl champion, five-time Super Bowl MVP, three-time MVP, two-time Offensive Player of the Year, one NFL Comeback Player of the Year in 2009. He also was a 15-time Pro Bowler, led the NFL in passing touchdowns in 5 seasons, most recently in 2021. Also was a 4-time NFL season passing yards leader, and then also led the NFL in completion percentage in 2007 and also in passer rating in 2007 and 2010. NFL records he has: most career quarterback wins with 251. The most pass attempts for quarterback in NFL history with 12,050. The most passing completions with 7,753. The most passing touchdowns with 649. And the most passing yards in NFL history with 89,214. And he also has the most pass attempts in a single season and the most completions in a single season, both of those coming in 2022, his final season in the NFL, with 490 completions and 733 pass attempts this past season. Overall, for Brady in his career, as I said, 7-time Super Bowl champion. And if you look at his career overall, he has 7 Super Bowl rings, which is more than any franchise in the entire NFL. All 32 franchises, he has more Super Bowl rings than. He also has 88 playoff touchdowns, which is number 1 in NFL history. 13,400 passing yards in the playoffs, which is best in NFL history as well. And also all those regular season titles as well that I already named. Being able to play to his age 45 season and playing as many seasons as he did, making the playoffs in 20 of 21 seasons is very impressive. And then also being a 6-time All-Pro and winning 7 Super Bowl rings. I mean, everything about Brady's career is impressive, especially being a 6th-round pick, being the 199th overall selection, 2000 out of Michigan. Not really having high expectations in the NFL, and then obviously getting his chance to win 7 rings and be just about one of the best athletes of all time. And as I said, I've grown to like Brady. I didn't like Brady when he was a Patriot, even though obviously you can't really deny his success in winning 6 rings in New England and obviously won with the Bucs. You really can't deny that. But one thing about Brady I didn't like is that he was always just getting talked about in the media. And the Giants obviously had some tough seasons, and all I heard from my friends was how great Brady was and how bad Eli was. And obviously, Patriots fans aren't going to like Eli Manning since he beat Brady in the Super Bowl twice in 2008 and 2012. So it makes sense why people won't like Eli and the New York Giants. But as for Brady, I came to respect him. I came to respect Brady. I even drafted him in fantasy in 2021 and in 2022, both their seasons with the Bucs. I had him in fantasy football. I grew to like Brady, and at the end of the day, as I said, the NFL will not be the same without him. So I'm going to break down what his career stats looked like overall. And the interesting thing about Brady is that if you break down his career in 3 different segments, his career in the 20s, and his career in the 30s, and his career in the 40s, so his age 20s, seasons, and then 30s, and then the 40s. Brady in his 20s threw for 21,000 yards, 147 touchdowns, and was a 3-time Super Bowl champ with 2-time was the Super Bowl MVP recipient. In his 30s, 40,000 passing yards, 309 passing touchdowns with 2 Super Bowl MVPs, one-time Super Bowl MVP, 2 MVPs overall, with 2-time Offensive Player of the Year awards, and was a 1-time Super Bowl champ in his 30s. And then in his 40s, threw for 27,000 passing yards with 193 passing touchdowns, was a 3-time Super Bowl champ in his 40s, 2 times being the Super Bowl MVP, and was a 1-time MVP in his 40s as well. Tom Brady, in 3 different segments, his 20s, 30s, and 40s, he had 3 different Hall of Fame careers, and overall won 7 Super Bowl rings, with 5 of those being MVPs, more than any NFL franchise, as I said. Most Super Bowl MVPs of all time, with 5 times being the Super Bowl MVP, and he's the only player to win a title in 3 different decades. And with that being the 2000s, 2010s, and the 2020s. And also leads the NFL, as I said, in all of those passing categories, all-time completions, passing yards, and passing touchdowns. So, very impressive run for Tom Brady, being the 6th round selection. He was in 2000, not having the highest expectations, and then going on a run, obviously being 45 and still putting up decent numbers this past season. I mean, Brady's career overall is very impressive. Very impressive stretch for Brady over his career. He was 8-9 this past season with the Bucs in the regular season, but did throw for 25 touchdowns and 9 picks. But you look at his 2020 season and 2021 season, 2020, 40 touchdowns with 12 picks, and then 2021, 43 touchdowns with 12 picks. Brady just overall in his career was elite. And even though I was never the biggest fan of him, one thing I've come to do with Brady is I've started to respect him more over the last few years, and you can't really deny greatness. One thing I would say is you can't deny greatness. And that's one thing I haven't been doing, right? I was never the biggest Taylor Swift fan. I know a lot of my siblings love Taylor Swift. Can't deny her greatness. She's always in the top in music awards and in the charts. She's always putting up big numbers. Harry Styles, One Direction. I never not liked One Direction. I always thought One Direction was great. I always liked One Direction when they were a thing, but I was into rap when they were still bands in 2013, 2014, 2015. But then over the last year or so, I came to love One Direction even more. I think One Direction created some of the best music of all time. And I'm fine saying that. Harry Styles won Album of the Year last night at the Grammys at Harry's house. Very well-deserved, considering as it was the number 1 streamed song on Spotify last year. So I'm just naming things. I mean, One Direction I always respect, I always liked, but Taylor Swift was never the biggest fan of. Respect her talent. One Direction, always respected them. So Tom Brady's just another example. Steph Curry, another example. I wouldn't say disrespected Steph Curry, but I was never the biggest fan of the Steph Curry versus LeBron debates that were a thing during the Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors versus Cleveland Cavaliers days in the NBA Finals. But one thing I've come to do is respect a lot of that talent. I started to respect a lot of the greatness. So with that being Tom Brady over the last couple of years, with it being Taylor Swift over the last year or so, with it being Steph Curry over the last 3 or 4 years, and respecting how great he is at shooting threes and how great a player is overall. And obviously, as I said as well, respecting some of the best in the business, in the music industry. You can't really hate on talent, and that's one thing I've come to do, and not do, I should say, over the last few years. So I wanted to say that and add that in there. But Tom Brady, respect him over his career. No one had as historic of a career in the NFL or in sports history. So congrats to Tom Brady on that. Anyways, this will conclude this episode. I was going to do a little more, but it looks like there's some people trying to come into the studio. So I will be back in the studio tomorrow night at 7 o'clock to talk about all things sports. Anyways, thank you guys so much for taking the time to listen to this. As always, I appreciate it and hope you guys have a good one. Thank you, and take it easy and be well.